Yeah, this is your boy DJ Leon D. You back with me again. I just came from Chicago. I like Chicago. I like it a lot. Now, I'm gonna tell you why I like Chicago because when I go to cities and I go to eat, I don't eat at one place and then give you a review of that particular city and the food it has. No, I go to at least six places and I try to get six different places all over the city so that I can give you a real review. And some cities just don't have any good food, no matter how many parts you go over it. Well, Chicago is a city that's very diverse. I look at diversity of the people to get an idea of what I should eat and what I should not eat. And I also try and go where the locals go because, I want to put money into the local economy. I don't care about some place like McDonald's or Burger King, some huge conglomerate that is not helping the mom and pop stores out. Yeah, I try to avoid that. Now there are places I've been to where desperation calls for desperate things. Yeah, like San Jose. But Chicago is not like that at all. And now when I went to Chicago, I really, really enjoyed the food. But let me tell you a story before I get to the food. Actually, this story is about the food. I got to Chicago, and Chicago is famous for hot dogs. They are famous for hot dogs. So I go to a restaurant that my wife really wanted to go to get something to drink while we was walking around Chicago. So I said, hey, it's a weird time of the day. We haven't had lunch. We just got off the plane. So I went to a Shake Shack. And I went to the Shake Shack and see, I knew, I didn't really want anything. And I was going to get something to drink. And I do like their milkshakes. And I said, I'll just get something to drink. And then I told the lady, I said, you know what? I want a hot dog. I want a Chicago hot dog. She said, no problem. I said, what all comes on that Chicago hot dog? She says, we get bread, you got a hot dog. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm in Chicago. I want a Chicago hot dog. And I'm going to get bread and a hot dog, which I expected that on a hot dog. The two things I expected was the bread and the hot dog. So she goes, she makes it. And now Chicago hot dogs got all kind of ketchup, relish, and it comes with other things on it. No, when she brings it back, all I get is a hot dog and bread. Exactly what she said. I'm pissed off by now. I said, hey, I want a Chicago hot dog. She goes, you in Chicago, and here go your hot dog. And I couldn't go off on her because that's exactly what she told me. Now, she might have been like 18, 19 years old, a young kid. So I wasn't going to go off on her because like an idiot, she told me what I was going to get and I got what she said I was going to get. And I said, for $4, this is not what I expected. I thought it was a great deal when I seen the price for a hot dog. I said, well, what the hell, The drink costs $4. Get a hot dog, give her 10, I'm done. Because tax is going to be added onto it, not a big deal. I didn't give her nothing for a for a tip. I gave her zero. I'm like, you see, that's why I encourage all young people, go to college. Go, and I knew she might have made it through high school. I'm not saying she made it much past that. But she gave me exactly what she said she was going to give me. It's just that I expected a Chicago-style hot dog, and she gave me bread and a hot dog. So anyway, back to Chicago. Now, like I said, I like diversity in every city I go to. And now I know there's cities I'm going to go to. There is no diversity. I've been to quite a few in my life. And so, Chicago is not in that category. So saying that, we went to Chicago and we decided that we were going to walk to this park. I think it's called Washington Park. It's a very, very big park. And so we decided to walk there. And as we parked and we decided to walk, we saw food trucks. And I saw the food truck selling authentic Chicago hot dogs. So I asked the lady, I said, hey, you got hot dogs Chicago style? She goes, yes, we do. And I looked at the menu she had on there, and they had like about 9 things on that comes with the hot dog. I felt really great. That's where I got my Chicago hot dog, and I got ready to order it, and it was $10. I said, oh no. It wasn't like it was a a pound of meat or anything. No, no, no. It was the standard Oscar Mayer hot dog, or not even Oscar Mayer. It could have been Costco's, where you get like 40 of them for like $8. That's what, I'm like, that's a lot of add-on stuff. So, but at the same time, they had this huge festival going on. It's the second largest Hispanic festival in the world. And I found myself right in the middle of it. Right in the middle of it. And I was like, okay, not a problem. We just going to walk down to the park. And then they had the park closed. Most of it was closed off because they had 750,000 people to see Shakira. It felt like 750,000. It might have been 200,000, but it was definitely over 100,000 because it was just jam packed, which is kind of cool because I'm like, okay, they're doing something good. They got a festival, and it was Memorial Day weekend. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, no problem. People having a good time. It was nothing going on that was crazy. 1,000 cops, out there, make sure that everybody was safe and everything went great. And, so it worked out good. But, I told my wife, I said, listen, we're hungry. Let's get some dinner, go back, get the car, and we're going to drive to this other park because I was doing drone shots too. I said, we're going to, we just going to, do some other things. And so we decided to do that, which is kind of fun for us. But I also knew that Chicago had quite a few Persians too. And I didn't realize that. So we go to this Persian place called Kebabi up in the north side of Chicago. And they give you so much food. And all the food was good. I mean, all the food was good. And I was like, and I like, trying different foods from different, ethnic groups. So I'm like, okay, this is cool. And we got there was like nobody in there. And at first I'm wondering, I said, what the hell, man? There's nobody in here. Went to the bathroom and, came back, no one's in there. And the funny thing about it was that by the time our food came to us, that place was sold out. Every seat was taken. I mean, they had parties of like 10 people, parties of 6. It just filled up out of nowhere. And the server was so cool. And he said, oh, it's going to fill up in about 20 minutes. I'm like, yeah, right. No, it filled up in like 10 minutes. And I didn't realize we got there literally a minute after opening. So, that's why nobody was there. I didn't even look at the hours. I just said, yeah, I'll get some food. And let's get some Persian food. And so, so that's when the crowd came in. They were waiting for the place to open up, and they had walked from the park that I was going to. It was Murray's Park or something like that. But I was going to the park, and they were coming from the park, but I decided to eat first, where they smarter than me. And it was like a mile walk. They waited until the place opened. And I didn't realize when we actually totally got there, and I said it was like a couple minutes after they opened, they were not open yet. They saw us, and the guy opened the door, so we came in and ate, not knowing that we had another 10 minutes to wait. But when it opened up, everybody poured in. I'm talking about everybody. And that was kind of cool, because, everybody was friendly. The wait staff was friendly. The food came in about 20 minutes, and the food was great throughout. And the waiter and the waiter, he just kept bringing us things to try. Free things. I mean, just oh, have you ever had this? And I've had it all, but the wife did not, which is kind of cool. Man, it wasn't like he gave us sample sizes. No, he gave us the real sizes. And I'm not a dessert person when I go out and eat a lot, because I think desserts never really taste as good as they should. And the pictures are always a lot better than the actual food itself, presentation wise. But this is everything he gave us was right off. It looked just like the stuff that was on the pictures. And so it was a great experience. And then he gave me the bill, and I felt so bad because the bill for everything that we had, it was like $35. And I'm thinking, you know what? I'm gonna make it $50 even. And he was so grateful to us. But Kebabi's in Chicago is a place that you gotta try. And and everything had an option. You want this? I said, no. He says, well, tell you what I would try. And he goes, try the beef and lamb. And I was like, awesome. Try the chicken and beef. Try the chicken. He just had great ideas, and and we never felt like we were ignored. We never once felt that way. Matter of fact, I thought that he gave us too much attention, but he was doing his job. Every time he walked past us, he would say, "You need anything else?" So it worked out great. Now, the other thing about Chicago, and I didn't know this, but that was me not doing my homework, but it was a good experience. We decided to go out and eat at this steakhouse. And, the guy goes, "Yeah, it's a steakhouse," and everybody recommended this place to go to, and I'm not a big fan of that. And then so I said, "Well, hey, it's close enough. We can walk." And the guy said, "You can walk to it." I was at the Embassy Suites, downtown at the Magnificent Mile, and the guy goes, "Yeah, you can walk to it." I said, "Okay," and I looked and said, "Well, it's got to be across the street." No, it was in the hotel. But the hotel had an entrance from the outside of the hotel, which is what everyone was coming through. Because we seen people coming through from the outside street into the restaurant. Well, the restaurant was attached to the hotel, and we walked to the restaurant. You had to go outside, and then we just made a left and walked 20 feet. And I'm like, the place is right here. Well, the food was excellent, and I am totally against eating at hotels. I don't do that. I do not do that unless I get there real late and I'm just desperate. But the food was really great. But here's the trick. But here's the part. It's a steakhouse, like I said earlier. And then what was funny about it was that they had a lot of Indian stuff on the restaurant, on the menu. I'm like, damn, they got a lot of Indian stuff here. I said, I haven't seen a whole lot of Indians. I'm like, usually on a cruise ship, you see a lot of, Indians and stuff, from India. So I go wash my hands, and I come back, and I still didn't see any Indians. Didn't see none. And then I decided to Google the best restaurants in Chicago. Now, you got these overrated steakhouses, which I wasn't going to do none of that, even though I wanted a steak. But I had other options that I had not tried. So I decided to go with the other options. But the funny thing about it was that we went outside, and we did about a Ferris wheel. We seen some other things, made a left turn. All I saw was Indians going to restaurants. I said, where in the hell they all come from? And then one of the guys I was talking to said, "Oh, Chicago got a lot of Indians. They probably got the second or third most in America in one city." And I was shocked by that, because that's when I knew why every restaurant had a lot of Indian items on this menu. I did not know that at first. So I decided, okay, this is kind of cool. And and so I'm like, okay. But I didn't try the Indian food because I can get that anywhere. But the Chicago hot dog is what I can't get anywhere. Not Chicago style. You get a lot of imitators or someone who say, "I lived in Chicago, I can make this, make that for you." Yeah, it's never the same. I like going to the city where it's famous from, and try that. The only thing in Chicago I didn't try that Chicago got that's world famous, and I tried it in the past at the airports and never really good in certain neighborhoods. I didn't try the pizza. I'm not a pizza fan. I know that's sacrilegious in some people's mind, but I'm not going to Chicago to get damn pizza. I can get Chicago style pizza here. Hell, we got an Uno in every mall. I can get Uno's pizza everywhere. So I say, nah, I'm not doing none of that. So what we decided to do for the next meal, the next day we got up, and I was there for a week. We got up and we went to the south side of Chicago. Now, I know a lot of people say the south side is where all the crime is and ain't nothing good there. I wanted some Hispanic food. I say, now, I've had Hispanic food around the world, lived in Texas, and that's Tex-Mex. Yeah, a lot different. LA, Hispanic. Houston, Hispanic. New York, Hispanic. So I wanted to try some Hispanic food. So we went to the south side of the city and went in a couple places because we was there for like a brunch and like an early dinner. A 9 o'clock meal and like a 3:30, 4 o'clock meal. Because we spent a lot of time at Lake Michigan. And that was one of the purposes of us going there, was to continue our thirst to see all 5 Great Lakes. And so we said we're going to stay close to Lake Michigan and stuff. No big deal there. But the food was great. It was some little mom and pop shop, that the owners were your waiter, your cooks, same 3 people did everything. And I'm like, in order to survive, you got to be good at all of them, or you got to have great food. Food was fantastic. I couldn't believe the food. Now, one thing about Chicago I do like a lot, it is definitely a food truck city. We saw food trucks everywhere. I like that. I like options. Now, the negative thing about food trucks is that, it's not really a negative, but you're not going to get like your vegetables. Now, a lot of people have vegan menus and vegan this and vegetarian that. Food trucks don't really specialize in all that because that's a niche audience. That's not like the general audience. You go there, you pay your $15 to $20, which is what it costs nowadays, and you want to be full when you leave. When I tried vegetarian food, I knew what it needed: meat. I knew it needed meat. I've always been that way, and to me, if there's no meat in it, you had a snack. Because snacks don't have much meat in them. You had a snack. But my whole thing was, it's very rare to go to a city and you can't find anything wrong with it. Now, Chicago got some rough areas, but those are the places that had the best meat though. They had great meals. And every city is different during the daytime and during the nighttime. Every city is different. So I'm not going to sit here and say Chicago crime free, because we all know that's a lie. It just didn't happen when I was awake. Now, I'm not saying I didn't look at the news. And then, like Naperville, Aurora, the suburbs, suburbs are suburbs. They build them so that they don't have to be with the people who actually live in the city. They build suburbs for those people who can say, I live in Chicago, but really they live in Naperville, or they don't live in the part of Chicago that you know. Now, the weird thing about Chicago, I took some toll roads, but never got charged for the tolls. Maybe it's a little bit too early for me, for me to be saying that, but I didn't get no tolls. I thought it was kind of odd. So, saying that, if you want to get some good food in a city that's got 1 billion restaurants and very, very diverse, Chicago got something for everybody. They just like the other big cities. They got something for everybody.
Daryl Davis.
Chicago got something for everybody. So my advice to you, that if you want to have a good time and you want some good food, it's just a nice city overall. Start with Chicago, because Chicago got it all. And do not ask for a Chicago-style hot dog at a fast food joint that advertises we sell hot dogs. No, you're not going to get what you think you're going to get. I knew what to expect, but also I knew she told me from the very beginning, you're getting a hot dog and bread. I just didn't think that would be it. And then she said the condiments are on the table over here. And I go over there, they got just ketchup. And I'm thinking I can go to Costco and get ketchup and a hot dog and relish and mustard, but I can't here. And not only that, in Costco, we all know it's $1.25 per hot dog that's a 1/4 pound in size. So it's just one of those things that, if you don't think about it, if you don't think about it, and you want something that's good, get a Chicago style hot dog, but it's not cheap. But then again, it could have been expensive because they had this festival going on, and whenever you got a big event in town, you always gouge people. Everybody does that, so don't act like only Chicago's doing that. They all do it. And the parking in Chicago is not cheap. Parking is not cheap, because I wanted to see the food trucks, see what they had, and see how can I taste Chicago. And on my hit list was one of the hot dogs, but I just couldn't pay $10 for it. I just couldn't do it. Now, some people say, "Oh, you can get them for $7.50 without the drink." No. That's still a lot. But I was in the area that those prices didn't seem that bad, but I didn't see anybody ordering them either. I didn't see anybody ordering a lot of stuff from the food truck. And that kind of gave me a hint. When there's nobody ordering anything from the food truck, maybe the prices are out of this world, or the locals know. A lot of times when I go to food trucks, I tend to go to food trucks by big offices and stuff, so that if the people working in these offices are not buying food from the food truck at lunch or dinner or whatever, that tells me that I shouldn't be buying it either. But I didn't go to a mom and pop place because I was more downtown and more suburban. I didn't go to a mom and pop place to see what a real Chicago hot dog would cost, because we know food trucks, they got to burn propane all day long. We know they're going to, their cost is higher than maybe a restaurant in a lot of cases, and they don't sell a lot of different things. But they're normally very good at what they sell, because I love a good food truck. And to be honest about it, Chicago had food trucks everywhere. But the thing I didn't like about Chicago food trucks, they're not all congested together. I like, they're usually 2 or 3 here, 2 or 3 there, 2 or 3 there. I like New York style. Line them up. Give me 30 of them in a row. DC style. Line them up. That way I got a lot of options from the very, very beginning. And it may cost me, a few steps to walk and see what they all got. But it's a bunch of them. Where in Chicago, they had 2 or 3 per block, which is a totally different thing. They had 2 or 3 per block. So that made it kind of difficult, because I got to do a lot of walking. And then you get to the next block and it's got the exact same thing the last one had. It's almost like in Maryland, we got a thing called Greek on the Street. Same families sell the same crap. And it's not bad food. It's just that, you go to any food truck affair or event, they're going to be there. So when they say we got 15 trucks, you already know 7 of them you already know. 7 of them you don't want to deal with. So, it is what it is, But this is DJ Leon D telling you Chicago food is worth the trip. If you're in the area, you're close by, you're close enough, go get some food from Chicago. I mean, hell, it's almost worth just taking a trip by yourself to Chicago, which is what I did. I took a trip just to go see Chicago. But I knew they had good food. But I didn't realize the food trucks, the food was good based on my wife liking the food, and she's very picky. And she goes, no, the food's good. And, but like I said, I'm not a pizza person, so I'm not trying pizza. And she is not a pizza person, but she did buy a couple of things from the food truck, and I ended up buying a drink from the food truck. Because water was $2, which is, normal price. You're not going to get water for free. But this is your boy DJ Leon D saying, Chicago, their food is worth the hype.